Hello and welcome back to Media Sussex. This is the third tutorial in a series of three that talks about WordPress and WooCommerce. I hope you enjoyed the first two. The first one featured products and how they worked within WooCommerce, and the second video was all about the orders and how they come in. This was the order that we created last time as a demonstration, and we walked through that process. This time I want to talk about the other settings within WooCommerce. I would imagine that most of these things will be set up by your web designer. So if you're managing the shop on its own, you probably would only have to think about the products and the orders. You probably wouldn't have to go into these sections here. But on the off chance that you do, it's useful to know this information. Perhaps for a little bit more advanced users, I just wanted to say that from the outset. But first up, let's look at coupons. As you'll see, there's no coupons here. What we're going to do is we're going to go to the checkout here. All these elements are in place, they're ready to go. But this section here, have you got a coupon? You get the option here to add a coupon code. So let's add a coupon and see how that works. Things to remember: the actual title of the coupon is the coupon code. So for example, 10% off, that is actually going to be the code that you enter in here. So that wasn't always obvious when I first started off, that that's the actual code that's going to be used. In this section here is just descriptive for what that coupon is. Okay, so down here you control what that coupon actually does. You get a few variations here. You can offer a percentage discount off the total cart. You can have a fixed cart discount. That's good if you're doing gift cards, for example, and you want to have a specific amount that is taken off total. And of course, a fixed product discount to get that product for slightly cheaper. You got the coupon amount. That will vary depending on what discount type you choose. If you choose a percentage discount, obviously this will be in percent. If you choose a fixed cart or fixed product discount, that will obviously be in the currency that you are trading in. This button here is if you wanted to add free shipping. So for example, and by ticking that, that facilitates free shipping. Now that will need to be configured later on within the settings of WooCommerce. It needs to be enabled within your shipping zone, but I can show you how to do that later. If you are going to offer free shipping, you don't necessarily need to include this piece of information or this piece of information. You can just include this, but you can use multiple options too. Coupon expiry is self-explanatory, and the usage restrictions is pretty handy. Adding a minimum spend, a maximum spend. You can suggest that individual use, which means this can't be used in conjunction with other offers. And you can exclude sale items. So if a product's already reduced, then they won't be applicable to this coupon. You can specify exact products that this coupon applies to. You can exclude specific products. And in the same way, you can do the same thing within categories. Finally, you can add email restrictions. So if a specific user is the only one who's allowed to use that coupon, you can give a email address that that's applicable to, but that email address will need to be the one that they check out with. Usage limits, pretty self-explanatory. You can have a limited amount of time, so this free ship is only available to the first 50 customers. Limited usage to X items. This means that you can specify that if they're adding more than 10 items to the cart, that exceeds the coupon. And of course, usage limit per user. This means how many times a single user can use the coupon. Now let's look at the reports section of the website. I'm not going to go into too much detail here because it is self-explanatory. You can always go in and have a look yourself. But basically what this does is breaks down all the orders that have been placed through your website, so you can see the statistics, what's selling the best, who's buying, and how. So that's reports. Settings we'll come back to. This is the biggest section really that we'll be looking at today. Status in here. All this is a breakdown, perhaps in gobbledygook to someone who doesn't know what they're looking at. I include myself on some of that because not all of that makes sense to me. But in short, this would be used if you wanted to supply information to a technician if they're fixing the site. This gives diagnostics of what's going on in your site, what's working, what's not. But nothing really that you need to concern yourself with in here, other than the fact that it's there, and that perhaps you'll want to export this, which you can just copy and paste the content just for diagnostic purposes. So that's status. And of course, extensions. This is more of an advert section for WooCommerce. As I've said previously, WooCommerce is a free plugin for WordPress. However, WooCommerce does offer a number of premium plugins that do come at a cost. Some are free and some cost money. Depending on what you're trying to achieve through the shop, you may not need any of these extensions, and sometimes you might need a few. So this section within WooCommerce just gives you a bit of a brief window as to what is available. You also can control your WooCommerce.com subscriptions. This means if you connect your WooCommerce account, it will handle your subscriptions to the various plugins. It's worth noting that some of these prices are renewable every year, which is why, for the most part, we try to ensure we just use the free elements of WooCommerce, because it is quite advanced to start with, and we can usually achieve most e-commerce shops just through using the basics within WooCommerce. So we've looked at orders in our last video. Today we've looked at coupons, reports, status, and now extensions. This is the last section now that I want to look at, which is settings here. What you'll see is a number of tabs up here. When we click on them, you'll see actually that there's more options beneath these tabs. So it can get overwhelming pretty fast. So I'll try and take it slow. I'll try and keep it obvious because it's not too complicated. It can just appear that way. A lot of this will be set up by your web designer, so don't feel you have to understand everything in this section. One other thing that you'll notice is that this area here is all blacked out. It's just for security for the video, I'm sure you understand. But in real life, you will see the white boxes for content entry. If you have a newer version of WooCommerce, you may not see some of the options that we're discussing. The options still exist, they've just been moved ever so slightly to a different location. So if I'm talking about a section in these settings here and you're thinking, oh my goodness, they're not here, what's going on? They've changed location, and there's actually a notification here that I've saved on this preview to illustrate what it says. It says something like this: looking for store, notice settings, and other things here will change depending on what tab you're on. It's now in the customizer, and the customizer is found over on appearance, and there you go, it's there, customize. If I click on this, and here we go, WooCommerce settings, store notice, product catalog, as well as the product image settings. So these are now within the customize section of WooCommerce. But depending on the version of WooCommerce, these settings may have changed location. So it's always worth having a quick look there. But back to this version of WooCommerce, which I imagine most sites will be. The first thing in the general tab is the store address. Pretty self-explanatory. This is just the physical location of your store. Legally, I think in some countries that needs to be in place. Next section down here, the general options. You can specify exactly which countries you want to sell to and which countries you want to ship to. But in most cases, the selling location and shipping locations will be the same. So currently this is set to ship to all countries and sell to all countries. Default customer location. This means when a customer goes to the checkout, it uses the customer's IP address to trace where they are. Some customers will have IP blockers, which means this won't necessarily work for them. But the good news is when you're at the checkout, you can make that manual change anyway. So while it does geolocate, it's not fixed to that location. Enable taxes and tax calculations. This is handy, especially in the UK, if you want to add VAT and things like that. That's controlled later on. Perhaps we'll come back to it at another time. And a store notice. This is a pretty handy tool. This is particularly useful at busy periods where you just want to send a quick notification to the customer. We're extremely busy. Please allow an extra 3 working days to process orders. If I click save there and reload Daniel's page, what you'll see is that there's a notification down here that basically just provides that information to the customer. Sometimes it's at the bottom, sometimes it's at the top. That can be configured within the theme. We'll move on now to the products tab, not to be confused with the products area of the dashboard. This is the products settings rather than the list of products that we looked at in the first video. Clicking products here gives you a selection of extra options down here that you'll notice just beneath those tabs, you've got General, Display, Inventory, and Downloadable Products. General, the weight unit and dimensions unit. Reviews, this controls the reviews section. While you can toggle a review on and off with the individual product, you can also toggle them on and off site-wide. That's done here simply by ticking that button. This is a handy one. This shows verified owner on customer reviews. This is when a customer comes back to leave a review and uses the email address that they used to place the order. The website can then verify that this is a genuine customer and not someone who's just leaving a review out of spite or any other reason. Which perhaps leads us to our next point, which means you can tick this, which means that only verified owners can leave a review, i.e. they will need to use the same email address that they processed the order with. It wouldn't be open to everyone. Product ratings, just as most e-commerce websites allow now, to allow a customer to give you a 5-star rating. Enable the star ratings and required, not optional. Okay, so that's the general tab within products. Let's have a look at display. This is where things start to get interesting. Here normally what you would do is you would select the shop page. In this case it's not, because we've done something slightly different, but generally speaking this tells you where the shop will be positioned on your WordPress site. So you create a page called shop and the shop will just be displayed on it. The actual page that you create up here called shop can have as much content as you want on it, but it won't ever be displayed. It'll only be the content that WooCommerce generates that appears on the page that you add to here. Same again, this down here just controls the information that appears on the shop page. So shop page display, you can have it to show products, show categories, or show categories and products. I would say if you have a lot of products, just to do the categories so that customers coming in for the first time can get an overview of your store rather than an extremely long list of all your products on there. Default category display, simply as before, this just decides what is displayed on a category page. You can either select the products or the subcategories or both. Default product sorting. Normally you're going to do this one, which is just by name, or if we have specified a specific location. You remember from the product section, there was an option to select the menu order. That would just either listen to the menu order or the product name and order accordingly. Obviously there are other options here such as popularity, average rating, and sort by price, etc. and so forth. These two pieces of information are a little bit more advanced, but basically every time something's added to the cart, you get the choice of either remaining on the product page or being redirected immediately to the cart. If we tick this, they will automatically be taken to the cart once a product's been added, but if you expect them to keep shopping and look for further items, I would leave that unticked. Enable Ajax add to cart buttons on archives. This is just a fancy feature that perhaps complicates things, perhaps doesn't. It can sometimes make the website run a bit slower and can add complications to some themes. So I would recommend leaving this unticked unless you know what you're doing. Product images. This is very important if you're uploading images that perhaps unusual sizes. This will resize the images to fit the area that they are appearing in. You can even select them to be hard cropped, which basically means no matter what, you're going to fit this size. Again, this is all relative to the theme because the different themes can have different controls over this. However, it's useful to know that there is this control here. So products, general, and display. Inventory. Each individual product's inventory can be controlled within each product. You can disable stock management at a universal level here, and you can also tell the website how long to hold a stock item once it's been added to a cart. Then they might leave the website, which means that product is just off the shelf, not being sold when it could be. So if you set 60 minutes, after an hour, that item will be removed from the cart and returned to general stock. This is useful to notify you when you are running low or out of stock. This controls which email address those notifications will be sent to, and these are the thresholds at which those emails will be sent out. Out of stock visibility, you can select that your products be hidden once they go out of stock. Stock display format, Remember earlier in the products video, I showed you that the product display can show you how many is in stock. It'll say 5 remaining, etc. This is where you can control exactly what it shows. You can show the exact quantity. You can show the remaining quantity once it hits a low level, which again is controlled up here, or never show quantity in stock, which occasionally may be useful. Again, if you're not using stock management, all of these will be irrelevant. And finally, on the products section, you've got downloadable products here. These are only applicable if you are offering products that will be downloaded once your customer is checked out. I'm not going to touch on this right now, but if you do have queries about how this works, do let me know. We can always come back to it at another time. Generally speaking, the default settings work fine, so you shouldn't need to play around with that. So that's the general and products tab up here. We're going to come back to shipping and we're going to jump to checkout. Look at all those options. This is because we've installed a number of plugins on the website that enable different payment methods. I'm going to say we're not going to go through all of these today. There's no need. Basically, these are just the control settings for the payment methods. So for example, if I was to click on cash on delivery, these are the settings for cash on delivery. Disable this payment option. We've disabled it. We don't want to do cash on delivery. It's not useful for us. In the same way, backs transfer, not useful to us. But all of these different payment methods vary slightly in the way that you add the information. I would encourage you to speak to your web designer about that. Generally speaking, PayPal is the standard one. Let's have a look down here. These are all the methods. You'll notice these all match these ones up here. And you'll also notice we've only enabled 2 payment methods. One is PayPal and one is Stripe. I'm going to quickly look at PayPal. PayPal has a number of settings, but realistically the only things you need to know is your PayPal email, receiver email, which is where the notifications are going to come from, and the payment action, which will be capture. That's basically all you need to do and enable that payment method. And then when you come back to checkout options, you'll see PayPal is enabled. You can drag these around as in priority order, but only the 2 that are ticked are going to be displayed on the checkout for the customer to use. Okay, just a few other options here on checkout options. You've got the ability to use coupons or not. We talked about coupons earlier in the video. You can calculate coupons sequentially. This is only applicable if you've allowed coupons to be used in conjunction with each other, which generally you wouldn't. Checkout process, enable guest checkout. This means a customer does not need to set up an account. It means they can check out just as they are, and they will have no access to that order information once the order has been placed. Instead, they'll be sent an email and that's it. By unticking it, it forces them to sign up with an account. For secure checkout, this is if you have an HTTPS website, which you'll notice more and more over the coming years is becoming standard practice. If you do have a SSL certificate in place, you can tick this, which will basically mean that the checkout is far more secure, but what it may mean is that some older browsers can't handle it. Remember from earlier on the products, where we had to tell WooCommerce where the shop page was? Well, this is the same thing. We need to tell it where the cart page is and where the checkout page is. We can also tell it where a terms and conditions page if we want to make one. These sections are the URLs that are used by WooCommerce to process the various actions at the checkout. So once an order is being paid for, WooCommerce will inherit this URL. Although it's not technically a page, it does pull on a lot of content from within WooCommerce that works a lot like a page. Same for all of these. By default, you shouldn't need to change any of these unless you're doing advanced things. Even advanced web builders probably wouldn't even need to touch those as standard. So that's checkout. Moving across to accounts. The accounts page is pretty simple. Once again, you need to tell WooCommerce what page that the My Account section will appear on. And this gives the customer the ability to log back in and have a look at their orders, as well as look at their shipping details. Again, this is just various options for controlling what the customer can and can't do with their account. And again, the endpoints, much like with the checkout endpoints, these are the URLs that will be applied to the actions the customer makes. These should not really be touched unless you really know what you're doing. Over here you've got emails. This is a list of all the information that gets sent out from the WooCommerce shop, whether that be to the shop owner or to the customer. These first 3 here will be sent to the shop owner. This is when a new order, a cancelled order, or a failed order takes place. That's so that the store owner knows what's going on and can come to the website to review what's going on. These ones down here, these are emails that would be directed to the customer. If the status of an order is changed by the store owner, the customer is notified whether the order goes on hold, is processed, is completed, or refunded. That's what those are. Here you've got the customer invoice. This is an automatic one that gets sent once the customer places an order. It gets sent to the customer, very similar to the new order email there that goes to the store owner. This one goes to the customer. Customer note, do you remember on the orders section where you could add a note to the order? This is the email that controls where that goes, and this is when a customer adds the new account details or resets their password that we just looked at in the accounts section up here. The emails can be slightly configured by clicking on the cog on the far right. You get some basic things that you can change here, such as the subject and email heading. You can actually view the template and the actual content that goes out to the customer, but it is in PHP code. I would recommend asking your web designer to make any changes there rather than manually achieving it yourself, simply because there's a lot that can go wrong. Back then on the emails page, you've got the from name, the from address, as well as a title image. This is useful if you want to brand the emails that are being sent out. I recommend adding a banner of some sort with your store logo on. You've got your footer text here. This is useful for copyright as well as any legal information to your emails. You can also control the color scheme that is used within those emails. The API here, again, this is a much more advanced section that you won't really need to touch on. Essentially what this is used for is when you want to join third-party software with your WooCommerce store. Finally, I want to go back to the one that we skipped over at the beginning, which was shipping, if you remember correctly. There's a number of options underneath here that maybe look a little bit familiar from when we were looking at the products a few videos ago. 3 areas to consider: the shipping zones, the shipping options, and the shipping classes. The shipping zones is the geographical location of where the product is going to get shipped to. For simplicity, what we've done here is we've separated out just 2 zones, the United Kingdom, where this store is based, and everywhere else, which we would consider as international. You'll notice that this one's a little bit greyed out. This is because this is a default shipping zone, which catches everything that is not applied to previously up here. We could add another shipping zone here. We're going to call it Europe. Head back to shipping zones. Now there's 3 options. So we could configure shipping for United Kingdom, Europe, and the rest of the world. The shipping is calculated in sequential order. So it will ask, imagine that we're shipping to the USA, for example. The sequence of calculation will be, is the USA in the United Kingdom? No, it's not. Is it in Europe? No, it's not. Then it falls into locations not covered by other zones, and it will go for international shipping. So that's the sequential way in which the shipping zones are calculated. Now I'm going to look at the internal shipping methods per zone. So let's take United Kingdom for example. We've got a flat rate here. There are 2 other options by standard, which include free shipping and local pickup. I'm going to add free shipping as well. Local pickup is pretty self-explanatory, but now we add the costs. So if we click on flat rate, you've got the title here. I wouldn't call it flat rate, I would call it UK shipping. Tax status is whether it's taxable or not. It is the UK, so it is taxable. The cost, at this point, in this cost, I would add the cost of the packaging. So the envelope, the bubble wrap, whatever you're using, this is what I would add here. So say £1.10. These bits here are what I would say the post office would charge you. So the large parcel, let's just say that's going to be £5, and a small parcel is going to be £1. Now you can configure these here. I've got large parcel and small parcel. That's actually a shipping class, which you'll see was up here, and we'll come to that in a minute. You can add as many of these as you want. So what essentially you could do is categorize your entire product base based on their size. You could have small, medium, large. You could go oblong, rectangular, circular, or however you want to do it. but then you need to know what that shipping class is going to cost when you get to the post office. So as long as you can match up these classes to the post office fees, then that's handy. No shipping class cost, that's when it's free. And the calculation type. There's two options here. You can either charge for the shipping class individually or the most expensive shipping class in the cart. So if someone has added 2 large parcels to their cart, by clicking this option here, they will actually be billed that £5 twice. By clicking this one, they will only be billed once. If they add a small and large parcel to their cart, they will be charged the 5 and the 1. But if they select this option, they will only be charged the largest amount, which is £5 in this case. Plus, of course, the cost up here. Free shipping here is configured very simply here. 4 options here. You can either have it using a coupon exclusively, or you can have it as a minimum order exclusively. You can have it as a minimum order or a coupon, or you can have it as a minimum order and a coupon. Any combination there works, but you need to add the minimum order value if you are selecting that. If you're using a coupon, that's configured in the coupon section that we looked at earlier. So those are your shipping methods. Hopefully that makes sense. And that works within the shipping zone. So hopefully that all makes sense. Shipping options up here. These are just the sort of default tick list things. Enable shipping calculator on the cart page, or hide the shipping cost until the address is entered. This just means when exactly the shipping is going to be calculated. If you remember earlier about the geolocate that I talked about, it automatically tags me as the United Kingdom. So it's figuring that it's offering me United Kingdom's shipping rates. I may not actually be in the United Kingdom if I have an IP blocker, which means that hide shipping costs until the address is entered is probably a sensible option. But again, by default, I would imagine that would be fine. Shipping destination, default to the customer shipping address is always sensible. Enable debug mode is when you're testing your shipping. Again, I wouldn't touch that for now. I don't think you need to worry about that. Finally then, the last element, the final piece of the puzzle, so to speak, is the shipping classes. I've touched on it a number of times throughout these videos. You can add as many shipping classes as you want by adding this button here, and you can edit them, of course. So if you imagine it like this, I would suggest that if you consider how you're going to be sending your items, that's how you're going to add your classes. So for example, you may have an envelope, a large envelope, a small box and a large box. That is exactly how I would do the shipping classes. I would add a shipping class for an envelope, a shipping class for a large envelope, a shipping class for a small parcel, and for a large parcel. Then within the products, I would allocate that class to which size matches the product. So for example here, if we add envelope, then as the slug, this is just the URL. It'll do that automatically if you want. You can also add a blurb. Generally speaking, that's just for your reference. So I'm just going to add another one. Now that we've covered everything up here, I'm just going to take you back to the product just to remind you where the shipping classes are controlled. So if we go to all products again, we'll use that mirror that we were using in the first video. Down here in shipping, you can control the shipping class, and you'll see the envelope and large envelope have now appeared, and you can select exactly what shipping class that applies to. In variable, you'll remember that the variations is where that shipping class is controlled, rather than in general for simple product. So I hope that makes sense. That covers all the settings within WooCommerce. Hopefully a lot of that is more advanced than you'll ever need to know. Thanks again, Daniel Lawrence, for letting us use your site as our demo. Thanks for watching. Please leave us a thumbs up if you liked the video. Cheers.